Welcome in to It's Always Sunny in Chiefs Kingdom. I'm Austin. Find me firing off my Chiefs takes on X at Real Bird Lawyer. You can also follow me on Blue Sky at Bird Law Expert if you want like Warhammer and politics posts. But here with me, as always, my co-host Taylor at Taylor_Wit on X to talk Chiefs. What's going on, bud?
Yeah, it's that time. It's right here.
Oh,
We're on the eve
mm,
of the action, so
mm.
I am fired up.
I'm fired up too, and we do have our. I mean, we couldn't do a significant event in the life and times of the Kansas City Chiefs without him. Our good dear friend of the show, Randy Jazzerli, will be on with us next week to do sort of like a final season preview before we get into the season. But
Yeah, isn't
before
it
we do that,
crazy? Isn't it crazy that
oh,
we
I mean,
talk to Randy Jazzerli as often as we do? I thought
it
about this the
is.
other day. So he
Mhm.
actually DM'd me and was like, "Hey, when are we getting together before the season starts?" And I'm like, like Randy's reaching out to me. Like it's just such a
Randy,
we
if you're
positioned
listening, we
ourselves.
love podcasting with you, and
Absolutely.
it's
I
always
mean,
a pleasure, my
I
dear
I
friend.
was I was wondering what something I might ask him next week if I remember is like when he started getting into the media biz and stuff like that. Like I wonder who he worked with where he was like, "Holy shit, I'm talking to." I mean, like Joe Posnanski would be a great example of someone that I don't know if Randy read Joe before I just don't know how
Yeah,
all that worked.
right.
But like, it's the type of thing where someone that I read all of their sports takes and just considered like a pillar of sports talk and all that stuff, and then now he comes on the show and talks Chiefs with us. It's the
Speaking
coolest.
of Joe Posnanski, because he re-entered my consciousness the other day. I mean, we don't need to share our bona fides about Joe Posnanski. We're both old enough to have read him in print in the Kansas City
Correct.
Star.
Yeah.
He wrote a scathing column about the Cleveland Browns the other day.
Good.
You
He and
may know
everybody
that
else.
he grew up a Browns fan. He quit the Browns. He re-engaged with the Browns, and then them naming Deshaun Watson as their starting quarterback
He's out
was
again.
he was like, this is it, and I'm not coming back this time. And it was a great read,
Good.
in the way that only Joe Pasansky could write it. But in any case, good times. And then of course I had somebody on X reply to me and say, I don't know who that is, and I was like, we're
Oh,
getting old, buddy. We're getting old.
oh,
We're
that
getting old.
sucks. I mean,
It's been a while.
I'm gonna be 40 in
It's
May. I
it's
mean,
been a minute. It's been a minute.
yes,
Where
yes,
it's
it
it's
has.
it's coming up.
Well, let's talk about something other than being old. Fantasy football. We
Yes.
have our leagues coming up, of course, this year, and I have done a pretty poor job at maintenance this offseason. Not a complete punt job, but I definitely could have recruited earlier than I have. So what this means is that for our redraft league, which is a $60 entry, it's a standard, redraft format where you draft everything ahead of time and all that stuff. We have about four, maybe five slots open out of the 12. We had some people decide that there was a lot going on and they didn't want to do fantasy, which I totally respect. However, we need to fill those slots. So if you are listening to this show and if you wanted to play fantasy football in our leagues, and believe me, you want
What you
to,
do. Yeah.
which
I
you do,
mean,
they are exceptional. We know ball, we know good
the podcast is
league
great,
structure. Yeah,
but to be honest with you,
it's
we do an
second.
even better job with the fantasy football league than we do with the
And
podcast.
everyone who's in the fantasy leagues would agree with that.
Yeah,
It's
and
a
they're all fans
blast.
of the podcast too. So I
Correct.
mean, you know
Yes.
that they're not just like, well, the podcast sucks. So
Correct. Please reach out to me on Twitter, Taylor_Wit. Shoot me an email, TaylorMWit@gmail.com. We also have our It's Always Sunny in Chiefs Kingdom at gmail.com. You can shoot that. I check all that stuff. Please reach out to me. Tell me that you want to be in our fantasy leagues. And also, I do think, last I looked, I might be wrong on this and it might be filled by the time you hear this, but we have one spot available in our Cutthroat League, which
oh,
is basically the coolest version of fantasy football
I
anyone's
mean,
ever
if you
heard
want to be as stressed out as you've ever been
of.
playing fantasy football, or
uh,
frankly even watching
or,
football.
or even just living
And
life.
this is me saying this as somebody that's watched my team play in 5 Super Bowls over the
Yeah.
last decade. I mean, yeah, that's pretty stressful, but like this is really stressful. So if you're the kind of person that's into that,
Oh, you meant your Chiefs team. I thought you were talking about your Cutthroat team, which has
Oh,
also
buddy,
been in Super
I'm
Bowl after
talking
Super
about.
Bowl.
Oh,
But
well, yeah, that's also
that's what
true.
I was.
And I
You've had
mean,
a great run in the
I
Cutthroat
have had
leagues.
a great run. But no, I mean, I was talking
Yeah,
about like just
yeah.
the experience of watching like a Monday Night Football game when you know that you're second to last in points
Your team's
and a
on the
bad
line.
the
Uh,
season is on the line because of, what some two dumb chucklefuck last place teams are doing on
correct.
Monday Night Football. And if these random idiots that you have playing fantasy football don't come through for you, your team is done for the year.
Just to
That's a
recap
lot.
for a second on how Cutthroat works, it is a guillotine league where the lowest scoring team of the week is out of the league forever. After they score the lowest points, their players get disseminated back into the league through waivers and stuff, and it's very cool. We start with a small roster so that all 16 of us can play, and then we expand the starting slots as the season goes on. It's a lot of fun. Everybody who plays has rave reviews for it, and I'm not just blowing smoke up our ass. Like, it's really, I think it's the best version of fantasy football that you can offer. So, all that being said, there is a slot that last I looked was open. We did have some people on a wait list that I reached out to that I haven't heard back. So if it happens to be that you reach out and I say it's filled, just know that you're going to go on the wait list, and next time there is an opening, I'll reach back out to you. Please, again, Taylor M Wit Taylor underscore Wit on Twitter. Reach out to me, tell me you're interested in the fantasy leagues, and I will get you hooked up. We're trying to draft. Obviously, I mean, the season starts on the 14th is the Monday night game, so that
Yeah, I mean,
next Wednesday the 9th. Yeah, we have just short of 2 weeks. We have 13 days until the season starts. So we're going to try and get everybody on the same page and draft and get everybody going. So that's fantasy football.
that's fantasy football. Let's talk podcast. Now we're still kind of working our way back. We're still trying to decide, what the schedule is going to look like, but we're here now. We did the last one and then we kind of took a few weeks, and here we're back. We're going to do some news, which we didn't do last time. We're going to talk some positional battles. We're going to continue with our confidence checks. And, I mean, we're probably going to get back here into a regular schedule, I think. We'll see where the season takes us. But, we'll probably get back into doing our systems and our previews, all of our established tropes, when you've been doing this as long as we have. And when the inspiration for this podcast, the namesake of this, It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, still going strong, like 15 seasons in, and very strong. If you guys haven't watched the new season, the new episodes,
Yeah, they're on
good.
season 18.
Very good, very good.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're gonna do news. We're gonna talk some positional battles. We're gonna continue with our confidence checks. We're gonna kind of do a little bit of head to head. What are you more confident in, kind of thing, which we haven't done in a while. So let's hit it. Let's talk injuries. This is where we always sort of begin when we're doing news. And unfortunately, there's some injuries to talk about. Let's start with Josh Simmons, the most mysterious player, Chiefs player in recent memory. I don't want to say ever, because it goes back a long time. That's just like a lawyer thing, You gotta throw some qualifiers in there, just in case.
Eric Berry's injury was a little mysterious.
Yeah, I mean, like, and I wasn't just talking about this injury, but like his whole disappearance last season was also quite mysterious. Obviously, those things are probably unrelated. I guess we don't know. He has a back injury, and Andy Reid's comments were a little opaque, kind of like he's going to have to get that checked out, sort of implying that they don't really know what's wrong with his back. He's injured. His back hurts. He hasn't been practicing for over a week. There's not really a lot of information about what the injury is or what his timeline is to return. It's not great.
And he's only played 8 games. And I know everybody has slotted in the first round stud left tackle. And then everyone's like, we've got left tackle totally in the bag because Josh Simmons is on the team and don't have to worry about it ever again. But like,
yeah,
that's just
the last time we talked to Randy, he said he's the second most important player on the team after Patrick Mahomes. Which
correct.
I don't even think that's unfair, but
he's important, of course, but he's not a known quantity.
No,
I mean, it's important for him to become who we want him to be and who we think he can be, but he's not him yet. And I think everybody coming into the season penciled him in and just thought, okay, right tackle is a little bit of question we'll talk about, but left tackle, we've got it. We've got Josh Simmons. But like the more this, I'm nervous. I'm anxious. I don't need
And I mean, the
left
Chiefs
tackle
told us they got it
problems.
because they didn't draft a tackle,
Yes, that's correct.
and then they brought in an undrafted free agent. We'll talk about Khalil Benson a little bit later, but yeah, I mean, not necessarily where you want to be. I mean, I think this is causing a lot of anxiety, both because we know what the potential of Josh Simmons is, but also
Yes.
because we know what the line is going to look like if he's not out there.
Yeah,
Like,
correct.
like at worst, if Josh Simmons is healthy and he's on the field, he's probably going to be like an average to slightly below average left tackle. And obviously, the potential is that he could be elite.
Yes.
The alternative to Josh Simmons is like one of the three worst left tackles in the league, probably. And
Esapole?
yeah, I mean, I'm just we've seen what that position looks like without Josh Simmons last year.
Right.
It was not
Right.
good, and Jalen Moore's star has fallen considerably since he stepped in and did those first couple of games were really pretty good, and then as the season went on, really kind of got exposed a little bit. Anyway, let's move on to another injury, which is trending in the right direction. Obviously, Patrick Mahomes, he's going to play in week 1. He has not experienced any setbacks. He's raring to go, but he's not going to play in the last preseason game. And I don't know that that was necessarily surprising, but I think there was a conversation being had outside the building, just among people like us, pundits, and that sort of thing, about whether it's really prudent to throw him in against that Denver pass rush in week 1 when he hasn't played since December and hasn't gotten, he hasn't really taken hits. He hasn't been
Live bullets.
facing live bullets. And, he is this will be the first time in his career he has not played in the preseason at all. Obviously, we saw his preseason snaps sort of diminishing a little bit the last couple of years, where he's kind of going down to maybe 1 or 2 drives and one or two games. They moved from 4 preseason games down to 3. That kind of cut that down. But this will be the first time he's never played in the preseason. And, you know, that's significant because Andy Reid was one of the last coaches that was playing consistently playing his starters some in the preseason. We've seen other coaches do it, but like Andy is the longest tenured coach that for sure is, every preseason the guys are going out there and they're at least getting a few drives. And this will be the first time that he's never gotten it. And like I'm not going to compare him to somebody like Joe Burrow or somebody like that, but like we have seen that's the first guy that comes to mind when I think like, oh, guys that don't play in the preseason and then they start slow every year. And
Sure.
like that's the guy that I think of. Of course, he's also hurt every year.
Right, of course.
And maybe it's because he doesn't play in the preseason. Who knows? You got to get some reps out there. But are you concerned about this at all? The fact that he's not playing in preseason game 3, which is tomorrow night?
Well, I'm not in a vacuum concerned about it. It does kind of concern me that not only is it the first time he's never played in the preseason, but it's following the first time he's never played in the postseason.
Yeah.
So not only is his layoff, it's not February to September, it's December to September. It's a longer layoff, right?
Mm-hmm.
And and he wasn't I mean he was rehabbing, of course, but it's not like he was perfectly healthy between December and now and he could have been doing his
Right.
own, version of practice or whatever. I mean, he hasn't faced a live pass rush for to the extent that, you would want him to since December. And I, at the same time, he's Patrick Mahomes,
Yeah.
and we have seen him come back from worse. I mean, not maybe not worse injuries, but like come back quicker and be fine and be able to bounce back. He's a super freak. He is a fast healer. He's a hell of a work ethic. He really pushed the entire rehab process as hard as a person could push it. I mean, he was as aggressive with it. The day he got hurt, he got surgery. I mean, he's been rearing to go. So on that part of it, I'm not really concerned. I don't think we're going to see a lesser version of Mahomes in week 1. And so if that's what I think, then no, I'm not really concerned about him not playing week 3. I mean preseason week 3. I just it's interesting and maybe a little noteworthy that he'll have a really, really, really long time between seeing live pass rush. But he's Pat Mahomes.
I think he'll probably be fine once he gets that first hit in. He talks about that every year, and usually that first hit is in the preseason. And
Yeah.
this year it will be against one of the better pass rushes in the NFL. And
I mean,
you
maybe
know,
they won't get him though.
maybe they won't get him. Maybe he'll just go the entire year without getting hit.
That would be
What's going to
nice.
happen then?
That'd be nice.
Uh, this is sort of depressing because we've kind of hit the three most important players on the offense in a row. I mean, you could probably put Kelsey up there, the wide receivers. It's funny how we've sort of, I've always been kind of a running backs no matter guy, until the Chiefs ran
Until they
out
got one that mattered.
the literal, well, not only that, but
Oh,
like the Chiefs have literally run out the literal worst running backs that I've ever seen in my life the last 3 years in a row, basically.
right, right.
So Ken Walker the third, he has an ankle injury. He's expected to be fine, but this is a guy that has a pretty significant injury history. It's an ankle injury for a running back who needs to be able to run and cut and grind it out and push the pile and all this stuff. Uh, we're a couple weeks out still from week one, so plenty of time to rest that up and heal that up. But I gotta say, like, just hitting these three in a row is pretty tough because, like, if
Who else
Ken
is there?
Walker misses significant time, like, what kind of impact does that have on the team? Now, granted, the running back room is much better, deeper than it has been. I think Matt Verderame has been consistently preaching, and I'm sure others have too, but I know he's the one that says like Emmett Johnson would have been the best running back on the team
Yeah,
the last couple of years by like a
yeah.
pretty wide margin. So
Low
it's
bar
not
though.
like, yeah, exactly. It's not like they'd be completely bereft if Ken Walker's not out there, but like he's your guy. He's your keystone free agent acquisition. He was the guy. I mean, they've been running a lot more under center. Like it seems like they're really going to commit to the run game. And now the guy that you paid a bunch of money to lead that has an ankle injury. And I don't blame them for being a little bit coy and mum about their injury situation at this point in camp, but it's not the best thing.
You certainly don't want to see anybody come up on the injury report, but especially the guys that are considered to be the heart and soul of the offense, the who the offense is going to run through. And it's swelling. It's not a high ankle sprain. It's not a like, there are worse things to happen to an ankle, ask Isaiah Pacheco, than just a swollen ankle. But just considering the microscope that's on the offense and that's on the running game and that's on the ability for them to take some pressure off of Mahomes. That's the other thing is, getting a running back and kind of just going into the season saying, all right, if Pat, can't really run around a ton, we're going to protect him by running the ball a lot. Well, what happens when
Right.
that's, rookie Emmett Johnson instead of Ken Walker, and now your box is there's stuff in the box, and I mean, obviously we've seen what happens when this team doesn't have an effective run game over the last couple of years, and it stifles the offense. It
Yep.
completely just
Yep.
shuts everything down. And so you want to take some pressure off of Pat and the passing game by making the other team respect the run, and they're just not going to do that if Ken Walker's not in there. So got to get him going and feed him the ball often and hope that a swollen ankle is just one of those nicks and cuts and bruises that if it were in the regular season and they said, oh yeah, he's got a little bit of a swollen ankle, but he'll play or whatever, we wouldn't even think about it. But because it's August 27th, now we're like, what if he's dead? Like,
Yeah.
so
This is the
so
worst time for that kind of content.
yeah,
That's a great point though, because like even if Emmett Johnson turns out to be a pretty good player, like teams aren't going to respect his ability coming in. They're going to respect Ken
of
Walker the
course not.
third when he's back there because he's the Super Bowl MVP and
That's right.
they have 4 years of tape on him and they know he can ball. They're not going to respect the other running backs in this room
You,
right away, even if they prove to be pretty good players.
you remember that
Trey,
Super Bowl MVP stat that I saw the other couple weeks ago? That of the all the active Super Bowl MVPs in the league, the Chiefs have two of the six,
yeah,
which is
it's
like,
crazy.
I mean, impossible. And of course, with Pat having three of the MVPs and Ken having one of them, they have four of the eight active winners. I mean, of the Super Bowl MVP ever. I mean, they're like that are active. It's just
Right.
crazy how many of those guys are no longer in the league. But
It's crazy how hard it is to win the Super Bowl and
it is.
how few people win it and how much we've won it. And so,
Yeah, it is. Oh
even if we never win the Super Bowl again, it's kind of like, oh yeah, three
yeah,
in
three
6 years
times.
is
Hmm.
pretty good.
Pretty good.
Trey Smith, this one at least is trending in the right direction. He has returned to practice this week. He had a hip injury. I know people were concerned about this. It sort of was a little bit reminiscent of the Josh Simmons thing that we're going through now, and maybe we can take a little bit of heart from that. They were pretty coy about his injury, just like, oh, he's dealing with a hip thing. He's probably going to be fine. But it like I mean, it's football. Like I just said, like you don't want an ankle injury with running back. It's football. Like you don't want an injury on any part of their body for
No,
any player. Like
no.
those elite physical body parts are pretty much all of them are necessary at all times,
Mhm.
for all positions. But like an offensive lineman with a hip injury, being able to get leverage and move people, um, it seems like he's back, and obviously like they Chiefs have paid him a ton of money, made him the highest paid guard. He had the medicals, not hip related medicals, but had the medicals with his heart coming out. So this one seems okay, and I am cautiously optimistic about it. I'm just hoping that the other injuries sort of start trending in the same direction that Trey Smith has.
Right, exactly. Another one of those things that if it had happened in the regular season, I don't know if he would have missed time or games or whatever. But everyone always kind of made the same observation that like he went to a specialist. I don't know if it was just like a little nothing if they would have sent him to a specialist. That's always just a little interesting. But then again, you're an NFL player and you've got a ton of resources at your disposal. And if you've got a little twinge in your hip in August, you might want to just go see what someone else thinks of it.
Right.
So it's not the end of the world. And obviously, him being back at practice this week, if it were more serious, I think they would have kept pushing him on practice. So, but he missed a lot of time, and so that's just the thing that you want to make sure he is in game shape ready for week one because he hasn't been playing in the preseason. He missed a lot of practices, so hopefully they'll get the big guy going.
Yeah. We have a trade that I guess we have to talk about because it's a trade. Like this is technically a trade. It's one of those transactions that comes across the waiver wire. We don't cover every transaction that comes across the NFL wires on this show. This is technically a trade, so I think we've covered every time the Chiefs have ever made a trade in the history of this podcast. This is probably the least consequential trade that the Chiefs have made in the history of this podcast, which goes back to 2020. So we're talking about 6 years. The Chiefs trade a 2028 seventh round pick for Giants guard Joshua Ezeudu. I'm choosing it to pronounce that way. It's probably Ezeudu, but Ezeudu sort of reminds me of it's like a Star Wars name,
Yeah, for sure.
something the Ewoks would say. Um, this is a guy that obviously was going to get cut, and the Chiefs just sort of kind of moved up in the waiver priority and said another team is probably going to sign this guy, and maybe a team that has waiver priority on us, even though the Chiefs are 10th this year, which is the highest they've been, in the Mahomes era, and hopefully the highest they'll ever be in the Mahomes era. So just kind of getting ahead of that, a 2028 seventh round pick is probably the second lowest compensation you can give in a trade. You can trade picks 3 years out, and the seventh round is the last round of the draft. So a seventh round pick in 2029 would be worth even less. But I mean, a 2029 sixth versus a 2028 seventh, that's kind of your runner up. That's
Yeah.
where the discussion starts. So I don't know. It's interesting to bring in a guy at the end of camp like this. He's obviously, you're hoping that he's not going to play a single snap for you this year. But yeah, kind of interesting that that's where they chose to make an addition at this stage of the offseason.
I think that just between Simmons and Smith at this point, they probably were just feeling a little bit antsy. And we're like, let's just get another big body on the roster that we can, in case we have to plug and play, we've at least given him more time to, I mean, whatever. I agree with you that it's insignificant and that I don't anticipate anyone to ever see Joshua Ezeudu on Sundays or any other time. At least I hope not, unless the Chiefs are playing their third stringers because they've already clinched playoff spots or something. But yeah, welcome to the team, big guy. Hopefully we treat you better than the Giants did. Not hard to do there. So
Yeah, right.
we'll see how it goes.
He's 26, and we like to talk about relative athletic scores, so I
We
just
do.
popped it in here. Ranked 215th out of 1,304 offensive guards. So
Pretty good.
at 83rd percent,
Pretty good.
83rd percentile on the relative athletic score. His bench is 25th percentile. So like
Oh,
kind of sure he's got to hit the gym when he
yeah.
gets over here.
Yeah.
But size is good, weight is good, vertical and broad are good. 40 is elite, 10-yard split is elite. His shuttle, 91st percentile. That was his best performance in the athletic testing. So, I don't know, kind of an interesting guy. Obviously we don't expect much from him, but it's a trade, so we had to talk about it.
Yeah.
Uh, Upcoming this Sunday at 5 o'clock Arrowhead time is going to be the deadline for final roster cuts. We've already seen some cuts being made, not so much with the Chiefs, but Cedric Tillman, I know, is a wide receiver that some people have connected to the Chiefs, was cut by the Browns. Wide receiver today. Teams are starting to the cuts are starting to trickle in, and we have teams playing their last preseason game tonight, tomorrow, Saturday, and then cuts will be on Sunday evening. And then on Monday will be when kind of the waivers hit. And again, the Chiefs are going to be 10th. So they'll have an opportunity to scoop up some players. And of course, waivers in real life football work different from your fantasy league. They don't reset if
Mhm.
you make a claim. So the Chiefs are just 10th on every transaction. If they are the highest or the highest team in the waiver order, from first to 10th. If no team ahead of them, 1 through 9, puts in a claim on a guy, they get that guy. And, that's just going to be the case until we start the season. So it'll be interesting to see kind of what moves they make. Is there a position group that you think? I mean, obviously, I know I mentioned Cedric Tillman already. I saw
Yeah.
several people kind of saying, oh, yeah, this guy would make some sense for the Chiefs. 800 something yards over 3 seasons. I think his career high is right around 300 yards in a season. But on the other hand, we'll talk about the wide receiver room. It is what
Right.
it is. So,
Right.
any particular position groups or players that you're kind of got your eye on?
I mean, not players yet because we haven't seen who gets cut, but linebacker.
Yeah,
I don't feel comfortable. We'll talk about it probably. We're really leaning heavily on Bolton and Tranquil and a bunch of guys that I don't feel super great about. And that would be nice to get a guy that can play a little bit of high level linebacker. Um, and other than that, obviously wide receivers. I'm sure there will be some names. I don't know about some talent, but I know there will be some names that get cut where people will be like, oh, for example, and I don't want this guy, but Hollywood Brown has been talked about as probably not, or at least
sure.
potentially not
Yeah,
making the
a
Eagles
potential cut. Yeah,
out of camp. And like guys like that, where you can at least be like, okay, a person that has had an NFL career at a certain point is now a free agent. Maybe the Chiefs can bring him in and see kind of how that shakes out. So wide receiver, linebacker, those are the two places that I'd be the most excited about. But we'll let the scouts do their thing, and if somebody drops on the waiver wire and they know him and they like him, trust Veach and go get it done.
yeah. Linebacker is an interesting one because it kind of depending on what linebacker role they'd be playing, you could potentially find somebody that could maybe slot in and play, 10, 15, 20 snaps right away without needing a whole lot of intake into the system. Obviously,
Right.
though, linebacker kind of goes from go hit this guy or go cover this guy
Yeah.
to you're the green dot, you're the quarterback of the defense, and that's a pretty wide spectrum.
Sure.
So
I don't think Bolton's going to get replaced.
sure, no, of course not. But I
You
just
know,
mean like,
yeah.
and like whenever you're looking at these cuts, obviously we as Chiefs fans know this as well as anyone except maybe Patriots fans. I mean, like there may be a guy that played linebacker for the Chiefs previously. Like
Yeah.
what I haven't looked, but like what's Willie Gay up to? Like that kind of thing. Like
Yeah, sure.
guys that have played in this defense before.
Mhm.
Um, there's always a possibility that you have something like that. Or I mean, when it comes to wide receiver, same thing.
Mhm.
And I think you're right that those are kind of the two position groups that I feel least comfortable about. But there's also, I mean, there's a learning curve with both of those. Linebacker, it kind of depends. But there's a learning curve with both those positional groups. So it'll be interesting to see who makes it onto the waiver wire. Speaking of how this team's going to shake out, though, let's take a look at some of our positional battles. And, you know, with a team like the Chiefs that views itself as a contender every season, you get fewer of these true battles than you would on, the Cleveland Browns, or a team
Right.
that's, the Jets, a team that's kind of just throwing some spaghetti at the wall and seeing what sticks. So there's not a lot of serious battles here, but I picked three all on the offensive side of the ball where I think things are a little less settled to talk about. And the first one is backup quarterback. So obviously the Chiefs gave Justin Fields some money to come in and be the backup. Justin Fields has now started for three NFL teams. He was a former first round pick quarterback, a great runner of the football, has struggled throwing the ball in all three of his stops, just has not shown himself to be an incredibly efficient processor back there running an offense. I will unfortunately never forget the Justin Fields game against the Broncos last year that the Broncos ended up winning. I think it was 13-12.
Mm.
Just one of the worst games of football I've ever seen. And I think he got sacked 9 times in that game. And it was funny because I can't believe I remember this. I remember way too much about this game, unfortunately. I think this might have been a Thursday night game. Maybe for some reason it had to have been an island game, because there's no way that I would have watched this game otherwise. I actually think it was the London game.
Jets
But anyway,
Broncos.
yeah,
Yeah, I think you're
Jets
right.
Broncos. Yeah,
I think
the
that
the
was.
London game.
I think that's correct.
So Sean Payton after the game was like, "Oh, we sacked Justin Fields 9 times. Can you believe that? Like, I told the guys, like, if you could sack this guy, he's super athletic." And it's like, no, he is super athletic, but like he holds on to the ball forever because he can't find an open guy. So on the one hand, you've got Justin Fields. On the other hand, you have got the rookie Nussmeier, who's going to start the final preseason game, 7th round pick. A guy that obviously was projected to go much higher and then played all of last season hurt. He's flashed a little bit. And the fact that he's starting the final preseason game, and also common sense. I mean, like, I think
Yeah.
it was always going to be a very hard sell for a 7th round rookie to come in and be Mahomes' backup, based on one training camp over an NFL veteran, even a guy that can't really play quarterback. I mean, it's Fields' job, but I think this is actually a pretty interesting conversation, because to me, I think Nussmeier is probably, if he's not already the better passer, it's close. And by the time he's been in an NFL camp for more than 5 minutes, like by like week 4 or week 6, or certainly by like week 13 or 14 at the end of the year, I would be stunned if Nussmeier wasn't a better passer than Justin Fields. And that's partly a Nussmeier thing,
Yeah.
because he's got good college tape and he's looked pretty sharp in some of these preseason games. He's had a good camp, but it's also a Justin Fields thing where, like,
Yeah.
we've seen Justin Fields and we just know that he's not a good passer. Like, he's not good at throwing the ball. On the
I
other hand, he's the veteran and he's really good at running the football. And if you had to get by 2-3 weeks with Justin Fields as your quarterback, you probably could design a fun little bespoke offense for a couple weeks that might work.
I think that Justin Fields is on the roster if there is a healthy Patrick Mahomes for some curveballs, some quarterback sneaks, some gadget plays, some
Hmm.
stuff where having someone out there that can handle a snap and handle it, calling plays and doing some of the stuff that you have to do as an NFL quarterback, but not lead the offense in an every down way. And that if Mahomes got hurt, I think they're going to carry all three of them. And I
Yeah.
think if Mahomes did get hurt, which Jesus Christ, knock on every piece of
Right.
wood that you've ever seen, I think they would go straight to Nussmeier. I even so quarterback two in this case is more just like two different plans. Like, if Pat's healthy, I could see Fields getting some run in just random. I could see a two quarterback thing out there where both Pat and Fields are out there, or just some weird stuff. But if it becomes like we need another starting quarterback than Pat, I think Nussmeier looks the part. He looks like he is a pro quarterback. He looks like he can throw like a pro. He looks like he just is. It gives me more confidence that they could smoothly transition, or more smoothly transition from Mahomes to Nuss than from Mahomes to Fields. I think if Fields is running this team for a whole game, it's going to look like it did at the end of last year, where like
Yeah.
you look like a headless chicken. Like you just don't look like. I mean, that's how Justin Fields has looked for his
Yeah.
NFL career. He just
Yeah.
doesn't have it for the vast majority. But he's athletic and he is a good runner. He's a damn good runner. He's elusive and he's got some moves and some strength. He just isn't the guy that you want every down.
Yeah, it will be interesting to see. We're not going to predict the whole roster, and we're going to know by the next time we record the show what the final roster is going to look like. I think that's the $1 million question: is whether they will carry Nussmeier as a third quarterback on the roster to protect
Pat
him.
with Pat coming off the injury, you almost have to
I
just
mean,
start the year with three.
and not only that, like it just he's one of those guys where it's so rare for you to get a guy that is ever projected to be like a first round quarterback pick in the seventh round
Yeah,
for any reason.
yeah.
And then, to have that and then to have him kind of show out a little bit. We'll see what he
Mhm.
does tomorrow night. But like he's had some good moments playing in the preseason and has showed that he's healthy, which is the main thing
Yes.
because
Yes.
he would have been taken probably on day two
Hmm.
if maybe late on day two, but probably on day two, very early on day three, if teams knew he was healthy, at the latest. And so, have a guy that not only could develop into a good passer as a backup, but also could, potentially once upon a time, it's been a little while since we've seen this, but like guys like Jimmy Garoppolo who are
Hmm.
going out and coming in a blowout in Kansas City when we ruined Tom Brady's career the first time, should have just retired then and stayed retired. Then he's getting a second round pick, or Alex Smith was obviously starting, but he gets a couple of second round picks, to go play somewhere else when he loses his job to Colin Kaepernick. And like having a guy that you can potentially flip for a draft pick, especially a guy that you got in the seventh round, while also having a good solid backup quarterback. I just don't think they can let Nussmeier
Right.
go to the practice
How
squad.
often will the Chiefs have the opportunity to have a draft pick that's going to turn into a good quarterback? Like,
Right,
the only reason he's a Chief is because he fell. They would not have grabbed him up high. And
right.
so this is their opportunity to actually do something that other teams can do, which is turn a quarterback into something that another team wants. That's just so rare because of Mahomes, because the Chiefs aren't going to be drafting a quarterback in the fifth or earlier. So you get a guy like Nuss and go show him out a little bit, and they're not going to cut him. They just I don't see it. I don't see it happening. I think
And
there's
he can't, for those of you who are not familiar how the practice squad works, they can't really let him go to the practice squad because another team, unless he's injured,
yeah,
can swoop in and claim him and sign him to
yes,
the active roster. And I mean,
they would.
you don't think the Browns would add like a sixth quarterback to the
Hell,
roster,
man, Browns, Cardinals, Falcons. There's a slew of teams out there that just don't have one good quarterback.
Right.
And yes, they certainly would.
They'd take a shot. Right tackle, we'll touch on this briefly. This was like one of the true battles in camp. And Khalil Benson was winning the battle like for the first, I mean, most of camp. We were seeing out
Mhm.
him out there a lot. We saw him kick inside to right guard for a little bit when Jalen Moore was injured and out for a couple of practices. Khalil Benson, the undrafted rookie right tackle. And then we saw Khalil Benson in a preseason game. And then we saw him in another preseason game, and it looked just depressingly awful. And so I feel like this battle, such as it was, is over. It's going to be Jalen Moore. And Jalen Moore hasn't looked great at right tackle in the limited reps we've seen of him in the preseason, and the time he was there. He got some reps there last year too, right? But it doesn't look great either way, but it feels like this job is going to go to the one-time highest paid backup swing tackle in the league, Jalen Moore.
So I don't believe they ever planned on Khalil Benson getting the job over Jalen Moore. What I think happened was when you look at the offensive line room, and other than the four established starters, the left, the four guys, you've got Jalen Moore, you've got Hunter Norzad, you've got Mike Caliendo, you've got Esapole, you've got all these guys that they know, that they've seen through camps and through preseasons and through seasons. All those guys. The only guy in that room that they weren't very familiar with was Khalil Benson.
Yeah.
So So just give him extended looks, push him to the limit, see what he's got at right tackle. I think they learned a lot about him by having him start with the ones all throughout camp. I think they learned, what kind of player they picked up, and they obviously learned enough that they don't want to start him. But to me, it looks like it was always going to be Jalen Moore. Now, I don't know how Jalen Moore would feel about that. I don't know if it's best for Jalen Moore's development to not start him in those spots. I don't know about this decision, but looks pretty clear to me that they were pretty much always like, yeah, we pay this guy a shitload of money. Like we're gonna start him. And Jalen Moore has starting NFL experience, obviously that Khalil Benson doesn't have. So, but it was a battle and it was interesting and it was one of the few positions that we were like, oh, I wonder who the starter is going to be.
Yeah,
So in
right.
that sense, it is what it is. But no, it looks like Moore and Smith, Humphrey, Suamataia, and Simmons. That's the line.
Let's talk wide receiver. This one has
Do we have to?
been sort of we do have to. This one has sort of been an interesting group to follow the last couple of years. Not really interesting in a good way, just interesting in like who's wide receiver 4 through 6 or 7 or 8. They broke camp with 8 one year. None of the guys were any good, but that's beside the point. You've got Rashee Rice, Xavier Worthy, Tyquan Thornton. Those guys are all locks to make the roster. And then you've got 2 guys that are like 99% locks. I mean, they're basically locks. Cyrus Allen, obviously the 4th round rookie this year, and then Jalen Royals, the 4th round rookie from last year. I would say both of those guys are locks to make the roster. Would you agree with that?
Cyrus was the fifth, but yes, both locks.
Thank you
Yes.
for correcting that. I just like in my mind, I upgraded him to a
He's
fourth
been
round pick
playing. I mean,
because I
next year
was
you'll
like,
be like first round pick Cyrus Allen.
yeah, I
Yeah, yeah,
mean,
yeah.
that she said 3 first round picks in this draft. Are you kidding me? Cyrus Allen, Mansour Lane, and Peter Woods. That's
That's right.
crazy.
Yeah.
Um, so
But
Cyrus Allen,
yes,
Jalen
all
Royals,
five. Yeah.
I'd say they're
Yeah.
they're probably both going to make the roster at this point. I mean, both because both of them have been playing very well in camp. Cyrus Allen, obviously from the very start of training camp, but Jalen Royals has really come on strong, both in terms of his camp performance per reports, but also yeah, he's been showing out in the preseason games too. And year 2 in the offense, and kind of a yak guy, maybe like a Juju type guy. And I'm not talking like peak Juju, but like Chiefs Juju.
The
That's kind
old
of
one that we got. Yeah.
yeah, the old one that we got, who was acceptable. I mean,
Yeah.
he was our
He was
he was
fine.
our leading receiver one year. So,
He was fine.
so 5 guys that are kind of locks, and then like I said, they've broken camp with 6 to 8 wide receivers depending on the year. Here's the rest of that group that you're choosing from for 1 to 3 additional wide receivers. You've got Niho Remigio, or Nico Remigio, as other people call him. You've got Jacob DeJesus. I just copied these off of the depth chart on Chiefs.com. So like these are not necessarily in order. They do that weird thing that they like to do on the depth chart where it's like wide receiver, the entire rest of the offense, wide receiver. It's like supposed to mimic like an X's and O's chart, except it doesn't because it's just text. So you got Nico, you've got Jacob DeJesus, Jimmy Holiday, Xavier Lloyd, Jeff Weimer, Andrew Armstrong, Jason Brownlee, and Omari Evans. Those are the other wide receivers battling for this last roster spot, or last 1 to 3 roster spots.
I mean, if it's up to Uncle Tobe, Nico is a kick returner, and he's on the
Well,
team.
and I think like isn't Nico the best player out of that? And then I
Also
don't think
that.
Nico is
Also that.
good, but like I I,
I guess
Jacob DeJesus, I literally
I could squint and see Andrew Armstrong as a better
yeah,
potential wide receiver
yeah,
than
that's fair.
Nico. But I do think that there's really Remigio and Armstrong are the 2 guys that I would think have a chance to make the roster. So it would either be 6 or 7, depending on if Armstrong makes it or not. I really think Nico's locked in, and I think it just, I mean, Brownlee and Holiday have been fine camp
Bradley made the
bodies.
roster last year.
Brownlee made the roster last year. He's got an interesting profile physically, but I just don't think he offers enough that he needs to be an active spot, especially with just some of the other decisions they have to make. Some of the other position groups, like I don't think the roster math adds up for 7, or for 8. It would be Brownlee. He would be the 8th. I don't think we have nearly enough room for 8 wide receivers.
Yeah,
So
definitely. I
So,
agree.
the five that you mentioned, and then I think Remigio is six, and there's a chance if they really want to go seven, I think that's Andrew Armstrong. And then
Yeah,
I think that's it for the wide receivers.
I think that makes sense. I'm in agreement with you there. It just is and this is again, we already talked about it, that this would be the group too where you could see potentially a waiver ad sneaking
Right.
in
That
as
would
a
actually be more
sixth or
appealing.
seventh guy,
Hmm.
especially if you could get like it's
A
somebody
vet.
with, yeah, well, a vet, but also somebody that like, I mean, Nico doesn't really do anything for me.
Agreed.
Aside from being able to call him Nico Remigio,
Miho Remigio.
he doesn't really do anything for me. I know he gets Uncle Dave going, and Uncle Dave's got an alarming amount of say over how the roster turns out.
Yeah.
I'm sure you saw this the other day, but for
2020.
those who, well, I was going to say his Mansour Delane comment the other day, where he
Oh,
was kind of
I
like, I wish I could get my hands on this guy. Do you see
no,
that?
no, I
Well,
didn't.
he had one rep playing gunner in
Uh-huh.
the last
I
preseason
did
game,
see that.
and Tobe was like, I mean, he looks great out there, and they
Yeah,
were
of
kind
course
of
he
like,
does.
and
He's the
he
sixth
was
overall
like,
pick in the draft, you
I
idiot.
don't think I'm going to be able to get my hands on this guy, but I sure would like to. It's like, no, no,
Get the
keep your
fuck
hands
out of
off
here,
of him.
Dave.
He's the sixth
I
overall pick.
the
He's never
2020
playing gunner
thing
for you in a real game.
was that the Chiefs are the second that have the second highest drought, second longest drought in the NFL of
Oh, of a
special
return to,
teams
yeah,
touchdowns.
yeah.
And it was 2020 was the last time they had a special teams touchdown, and the Raiders the only other team that's had a longer drought. So
Well, and they also had
thanks,
a long
Dave.
drought of not allowing a special teams touchdown, but then they broke that streak last
Right,
year. So,
right,
like, I
yeah,
mean, at this point, what are you bringing to the table?
right. I think Dave's
Butker did hit
cooked,
that
but
69-yard field goal
he
in the
did. That
last
was cool.
preseason game.
That was cool, and
Then
he
he
and he
also
cleared it.
missed.
I mean, it
Yeah,
was
I
a
mean,
it
it
would
was a
have been
bomb.
good from 76. I
Then
think
he
I saw.
missed going some extra
Sure,
points. So,
that's a
I mean,
classic Butker.
it is what it is. Yeah, we'll see how this shakes out. I could definitely see an addition, and let's be honest, wide receiver 6 or wide receiver 7
Yeah.
is just going to get cut when we sign Tyreek at the end of October. So,
That's
so
absolutely true.
I guess actually let's throw in a little note about that here. We didn't put it in the news. For those of you who didn't see it, and I don't blame you because I saw this unfortunately as a clip on McAfee, and I'm
Oh yeah.
trying really hard not to consume McAfee content. I listened to 13, I actually think it was 12 seconds of the McAfee album, the Pat McAfee music album that was released a couple of weeks ago, and I literally that's how long it could make it before I turned it off. If you go listen to the first track on the McAfee album, that's when the singing starts. Is 12 seconds in on the first track. So I saw this on McAfee, but Drew Rosenhaus, Tyreek's agent, was on McAfee. He said that Tyreek expects to play this year, that he's healthy, that he was sending him videos of him cutting and everything. And Tyreek, I actually put more stock in that than I do in anything Tyreek posts on social media, because as we know, he loves to post stuff on social media just to get people talking about him and just to push people's buttons.
He does.
And like, it wasn't but 3 weeks or a month ago that he posted like, oh, my leg, I can't put any weight on it, blah, blah, blah. And then his agent last week is like, oh yeah, I mean, he's going to play this year and he's sending me videos and he looks great. Now the agent's got an agenda there too.
Yeah.
But I trust Drew Rosenhaus's public comment more than I would trust Tyreek's. So if we assume
low bar, but yeah.
I know it is a low bar, and taking both of their motivations into account. But what he said was, I expect Tyreek to play this year. I think he's going to sign, with a contender, and I expect him to be playing, meaningful football, at the end of the season. And like, it remains to be seen how good the Chiefs are going to be and how meaningful their football is going to be in December, January, February. But if Tyreek is going to sign with the team mid-season, I mean, we talk about this pretty much every time there's a wide receiver joining a team late in camp or in the middle of the year. It's hard to do. It's not easy to come into a team where you don't know the system as a wide receiver, you don't have any reps with the quarterback, and to get up to speed, learn the offense, and get out there and play meaningful snaps and contribute when you haven't played in that offense before, you haven't played with that quarterback before, and you don't know the playbook. So there's
Enter Eric
really
Bieniemy and Patrick Mahomes and Andy
exactly
Reid.
there's really only one team that makes any sense for Tyreek to sign with if he's not going to be there for camp, which at this point camp's over, with season's about to start. and they could really use him if he's even 50% of the old Tyreek. If he's even 40% of the old Tyreek, he's like the fourth best, third best wide receiver on the team. Like
I, I think there's one team to look for if it's not the Chiefs. Can
Chargers.
you? Yes, Mike McDaniel
Yep.
need wide receivers in the Chargers contender. Um, Drama with playing the Chiefs and being an enemy of the
Yeah.
Chiefs.
Yeah.
That's very heel turn
I mean,
Tyreek.
they
Like,
would both be dramatic. Like obviously coming back would be dramatic. He would get a lot of buzz for that, and I'm sure he would love it. He
yes,
would also get a lot of buzz doing the Chargers thing and just being the heel and
yeah,
you know
yeah,
and being able to go and be like, oh, Justin Herbert's the most accurate
yeah,
quarterback I've ever
yeah, yeah,
played with.
yeah.
I
Right,
mean,
right,
like
right, right, right.
I'm sure he'd eat that up. The whole like Madison Beer
Going to LA,
C-list celebrity LA.
I mean, it
I could
really
see it.
does make
I
some
could see it.
sense.
But
Um,
Do you think Harbaugh is a Tyreek guy though?
yes, I do.
You think?
I think any football coach is a Tyreek
Yeah,
guy,
that's
to be
fair.
completely honest with you.
That's fair. That's fair.
Although Mike McDaniel might not be a Tyreek guy. They might
Yeah,
not have gotten
that's true.
along. We don't
That's true.
really know the vibe there between those two, and it
Right.
might be the situation. Either they got along, in which case the Chargers are a huge contender for Tyreek, or they didn't get along, and in which case they're out.
They're
And
out.
and
Exactly.
there's no one else that's the only two teams he's played for, obviously, are the
Yeah,
Chiefs
and
and
I
Dolphins.
mean, in LA, I mean, you'd have the McDaniel connection. I totally get it, and obviously, if they vibed, I think that's a possibility. But you still don't. You've never played with Herbert. You've never played in this version of the Mike McDaniel's offense, which is going to be different from Miami because in Miami it
Right,
was all built around
right.
Tyreek and
Timing.
Jalen Waddle. I mean, like it was
Yeah,
just,
yeah.
Tua is a very different thrower of the football than Herbert is. I
That's an
saw,
understatement.
yeah, I saw some Chargers fans complaining the other day about Herbert's little preseason performance where like he was had to like layer in a throw over the middle and he just like couldn't do it. And I've seen Herbert do some great stuff, but like
Mhm.
that was like the only thing that Tua was good at was like just really good at like
Yeah, yeah,
layering in those throws over the middle.
yeah.
And that's why that offense worked so well. And I don't know that it would necessarily work as well with Herbert as the quarterback with no reps with Tyreek. So anyway, it could be interesting. I know we would love to see it. Obviously, you guys know how we feel about it. I know that people have mixed opinions. Tyreek is and remains a controversial figure, but
Right,
we'd welcome it.
right.
Let's do some confidence checks. And we did this the last time we potted a couple of weeks ago, but we were kind of just ranking on a scale of 1 to 10. And I actually want to tweak this a little bit and I want to make it into a head-to-head competition. So let's start off with a broad one here. Are you more confident in the 2026 Chiefs offense or defense?
So I think we need to handicap this question a little bit because no matter how good the defense is ever going to be, and really no matter how bad the offense is ever going to be, if Pat Mahomes is your trigger man, I just find it hard to logically ever pick the defense in that boiled down scenario. Now, this is a little bit, there's more context to it. Pat's coming off the injury. Coaching changes, and although it's back to a coach that we're familiar with as the OC with Bieniemy, you've also got new wide receiver coach, new running back coach. There's a chance that there's some process issues, and there's a chance that there's some stuff that when Andy, everyone said that his offense was stale, and he now has made some changes to under center. Maybe he doesn't know how to do that. Maybe the
Yeah.
offense isn't good anymore. And so there's questions. Obviously, the wide receivers are a huge question mark. Trav's older. The line is good, but a little banged up. Ken should be good, but there's not a lot of like lean on aspects of the offense other than Pat. Now, comparing that to the defense, I don't really know what the Chiefs defense does super well, and maybe they don't have to do anything super well, but like the line is better from the draft, I think, between Peter Woods and R. Mason Thomas, and then the free agents addition of Kyrus Tonga. Those are big ads, and they're going to help Chris Jones. And I think we're going to see the best interior or the best front four and like pass rush from the line that we've had probably for a couple years is my hope. And if they're not, then that's a problem because their pass rush has not been good. I mentioned linebackers earlier. I think the linebackers are a huge question mark. I think Bolton and Tranquil have, while they've been solid NFL players, I don't know if they should be anchoring an entire middle of the defense for an NFL defense. And then the back end is really interesting, but not necessarily something that I know what's going to happen.
Hmm.
Delane looks like a good player. Everyone's excited about Noel Williams and excited about his, arrival. But he's a little bit of an unknown. And then obviously you've got, Chamari Connor is your starting strong safety. I don't know how great that feels, or if it's Jaden Hicks. Hicks kind of struggled last year after a
Yeah.
really good rookie year. Alohi Gilman was a fine player for Baltimore, but I mean, they didn't, he didn't set the world on fire. So all that being said, there's a bunch of question marks on both sides of the ball. I can't answer that I am not confident in either of them. I do feel like the Chiefs are going to win some games and be a good team. L'Jarius Sneed, Chris Roland Wallace, those guys, who knows what they have. I'm going to go with the offense. That's my long-winded way of saying Patrick Mahomes is Patrick Mahomes. And even though I said we should handicap this a little bit, I still am taking the offense even with the handicap.
I'm taking the defense even without the handicap.
Okay.
And here's why. I feel great about Pat. I have always felt great about Pat. I
Me too,
he's
since the
the
day I was
best
born.
he's the best quarterback in the NFL still. I still feel like there's a pretty good chance that the rest of the operation lets him down. I think like it's the defense for two reasons for me. Number one, I have more faith at this stage in Steve Spagnuolo's unit and the coaches that he has under him than I do in Andy's side of the ball. And we have obviously, like at their peak, both masters of their craft, very influential, especially Andy, but Spags in his own right has had
Certainly.
a huge influence on the way the defense is played in the league. I think Spags just has a better finger on the pulse of how defense is played in 2026 than Andy does on the offensive side. I hope he proves me wrong, and there is absolutely potential that he will prove me wrong. Like I think,
That
and I
Andy will.
think yes, that Andy will, and I think if
Yeah.
we see it, we're gonna see it right away. I think if we, I think we're gonna know through like one or two games what we're gonna get from the offense, like whether it's rejuvenated Andy who's got some fresh ideas and the offense is going to be really good, or if it's going to kind of be the same thing we've seen the last 3 or 4 years that has not been incredibly inspiring, especially with the lack of talent on that side of the ball. The
Mhm.
other part of the defense confidence for me is that, like, with the exception of Cyrus Allen, every single guy on the team that's like an unknown and has
Yeah.
like a ton of upside is
Yeah.
on the defensive side of the ball.
Right.
Um, Delane Woods, obviously you spent both of your first round picks there. But man, R. Mason Thomas in his last preseason game, against the Buccaneers, I get that the guy he's going against is just not going to start and he looks bad, but like just that kind of speed getting to the quarterback is a rare thing that we haven't had in years. And I
Hmm.
think,
Hmm.
like even just his selection is sort of indicative of what I'm saying about where Spags and Andy are at in the evolutions of their career. Spags is not that much younger than Andy. He's a couple years younger. Um, and he's been Andy's subordinate, but like and he's very set in his ways too. I mean, we talked about Spags type drafts. Our friends at KCSN, had their Spags cutoffs for defensive linemen for years, and then he went out and drafted R. Mason Thomas,
Hmm.
and they drafted a couple years ago Felix Anadike-Uzomah, who also has had a good camp and showed out in the last preseason game. So he's kind of showed more ability to
Yep.
adapt than Andy has recently.
Yeah.
But I just think that the three guys that we took, at the top of the draft, they all three of those guys, Delane Woods, R. Mason Thomas, they just have juice. And there's just almost no juice on the offensive side of the ball. Now, maybe Xavier Worthy comes in and has a breakout year. I wish I could be more excited about him.
Sure.
I wish I could go back to the excitement I felt when we drafted him. I understand that he was hurt last year. I just haven't seen it. I'm so stoked about Cyrus Allen, dude. But like, he's a fifth round rookie.
Right.
So,
Right. And
uh,
he's not a 6'5" fifth round
yeah,
rookie. Like,
exactly. Yeah.
he's a good player, but like if he's really good, I don't know if it changes a ton.
I will take the defense, and now we're going to pivot to an offense specific question. Confidence checks. Are you more confident in the Chiefs' offensive line or wide receiver room? Now,
Offensive line.
Okay, I think that is the right choice. Would your let's let's say let's fast forward 2 weeks, and you haven't gotten an update on Josh Simmons. Does that change your answer?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Because now you're talking about I'm not confident in the right tackle, and so now I'm not confident in either tackle,
Yeah,
and we're talking about, and I don't know about the left guard a ton. I mean, Kingsley is fine, but
yeah, he had a
really
good year
now,
last year. I
yeah, I
mean,
mean he's
yeah,
fine, but now you're really
you want to
just
see him
talking
stack
about,
good
okay,
seasons,
I'm
but
hanging my hat on Creed, who I believe is a top three center, if not the number one center in football, and Trey Smith, who is good. I don't quite know if his play has been like, oh, we should pay him as a top
yeah, I don't
two
think he's the
guard,
best right guard in
and
the league. Yeah,
right, but he's a good player, obviously, and but that would then compare to, okay, so if we don't know much about Simmons, and let's say Rashee Rice and Xavier Worthy are at least the versions of them that we not the best version of them, but not the worst either. Just like they're fine. They're not struggling. They're catching balls. They're doing what they're supposed to do. Then okay, then I shift back to the top two receivers on the team. Really, Worthy and Rice are the guys that need to make that room go. They're the
yeah,
ones that, it doesn't
absolutely,
matter how good
100%.
Tyquan Thornton is. He's not going to be a difference maker
Yes,
in the way
the
that
the best version of Taekwon Thornton isn't
is
going to. Yeah,
he's a role player. He's a wide receiver three. And honestly, Cyrus Allen, I know people are expecting a ton from him, but it'll be great if he's just out there be able to be a part of the offense, because a rookie wide receiver in an Andy Reid system is
yeah,
usually like not even there, like not
right.
even on the field.
I mean,
So
Jalen Royals played like
eh,
5 snaps,
of course, I mean
before
Rasheed
the
Rice
before Pat got
took
hurt
a
last
while
year.
before he really got going. I mean, Worthy did the same. It's just one of those deals. So yeah, I'm going with the offensive line right now because I feel like Rashee Rice could be a total idiot and he might not be good. He looked cooked in camp, and Worthy doesn't look like he knows where he is on the field, and he's tiny, and his tiny twink body has gotten broken a couple times. And there's a ton of question marks with the wide receivers, but that's how it goes.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think this one unfortunately only got interesting because of the uncertainty around Josh Simmons.
Right.
Obviously, like the more you the more uncertainty you add to the Josh Simmons side of the equation, the closer this gets. But yeah, no, it's tough. It's tough to have this be a question and not feel great about either one. The offensive line has the higher ceiling for sure because we know two of the guys are one of the guys is elite, two of the guys are probably at least pretty good. The other guy's good with the potential to be elite, and we know one of the positions is probably going to be fairly bad.
Yeah.
But like the
Yeah.
wide
Yeah.
receiver room, where you're kind of banking on, top percentile, the far right part of the curve
It's a
for
pretty
all these
weird room.
guys to
Pretty
get
weird room.
yeah to get a good situation out of that. All right, this is an interesting one. I actually am really curious to see where you go with this one. Going over the defensive side of the ball, the secondary or the pass rush. And I do say pass rush. We're really talking like defensive line. So
Hmm.
take the linebackers out of the equation, and we're
Which is
just
good.
talking. Yeah, exactly. We already know how we feel about the linebackers. Not great, Bob. Secondary or pass rush here. This I'm interested to see where you land on this one.
Yeah, I mean, if I could really split hairs, I would say that the secondary has a higher ceiling, but I think the pass rush has a higher floor. But um, in general, I feel pretty good about the defensive line. As I said earlier, I think the
Yeah.
defensive line is probably the best line they're going to have they've had in a couple of years. Not to say it's some world beaters out there, but I just feel like they did well on depth. They did well on interesting and fun new talent. I will say that the guys from the 25 draft class, Norman Lott and Gelati, have had some injury problems and have had some consistency problems, and I'm not really sure what's going on. I mean, like, right now the depth chart I think would have the right edge rusher be Ashton Gelati, but he's hurt, and so then you're looking at Felix, and so like that. Okay, edge rush has never really been, that maybe they move R. Mason Thomas over opposite Karlaftis. They could do some stuff. I love Kyrus Tonga. I mean, obviously a defensive tackle is not as sexy of a position as most, but between Tonga and Chris Jones and Peter Woods, that's a hell of a good middle. And then Karlaftis is fine. He's okay. He's not the end of the world. He's not the worst. Can make some stuff happen. So fine there. And then you're just looking at, like I said about the ceiling. I love Noel Williams' ceiling, but I think his floor is also probably pretty low. I don't
Yeah,
know. I don't
sure. We
know
just don't know enough
exactly.
about him yet.
Right. And then I don't really feel good about Chamari Connor being a part of the regular rotation. He's fine, but he's not really that fine. He's pretty bad. Um, Gilman's a guy. I mean, we already kind of, Delane. I'm super excited about Delane.
Yeah,
Obviously, I
sure.
think that he looks like he could be a cornerback one in the NFL and lock people down and be a dude for a while. I mean, hell, you picked him sixth overall. He better be a dude. He better
Yeah,
be good because that's a
right.
huge asset to use on that position if he's not good. I don't know if Snead's knee is cooked or not. He's seems like he's fine.
It'd be really
Um,
interesting to see him out there week one, see what he
Yes,
looks like in
absolutely.
game action.
Chris Roland Wallace has blossomed in the Chiefs system. He's kind of gotten better and better, but I don't know. Starting nickelback Chris Roland Wallace, I don't know about that. That doesn't really give me a ton of confidence, I guess. Hicks fell off a little bit. If he steps forward, he would be a nice addition. Good player out there. But Christian Fulton, no idea, no
Yeah,
idea at all. If
yeah,
he's going to be good, bad, or not even there. I mean,
yeah.
that's just kind
Right.
of
Trade cut.
right. It could be anything. It could even be a boat. So that's why I picked the defensive. I just think, especially with the three defensive tackles that I feel really good about, and then Karlaftis, I just think there are more good players on the defensive line.
Yeah, I think this one's really close for me, and
I
and
agree.
this kind of goes back to me being more confident in the defense than the offense. Like I actually feel pretty good about both of these groups. I'm not sure if they're going to be great right away, but like I feel like we have substantially raised the floor and the ceiling of both of these units. Which I mean, the secondary was very good last year, and there obviously has been a ton of turnover in the secondary.
Right.
They've turned over a significant portion of that unit, but they've invested in it. Like you spent the sixth overall pick there. You've got, Noel Williams, who was a mid-round pick last year and played pretty well when he was out there. Um, I think I'm also choosing the defensive line, the pass rush. But it is pretty close because you've got juice in both of these units. You've got good players in both of these units. I think they both probably have a pretty decent floor. Like the floor for both of these units is probably average. Like I don't think either of these units is going to be terrible.
Right.
And I think both of these have the potential to be really good. I mean, like, yeah, imagine if Noel Williams is a good, like the player that we saw last year, but he's an every down, an 80-90% snap guy. And Mansour Delane comes in and he's, a top five cornerback in the league as a rookie, which cornerback is a position where that can happen, right? Like
Right.
it's kind of just come in and lock down your guy, and it doesn't require a whole lot of mental development like some other positions do. Like usually the best cornerback in the league is a guy that's in his early to mid 20s that still has all that athleticism. And,
Yeah.
like if you have two lockdown cornerbacks, you've got a great secondary,
Yep.
like
Yep.
especially, like Alohi Gilman. Sure, not like an incredibly sexy name, but like he's solid. And if you have a solid safety kind of holding down center field and you've got two elite cornerbacks, okay. I mean, that's like a great secondary. That's a top 10 secondary. Like if you come in with Chris Jones and Chris Jones with a little bit of help.
Yeah.
Like you've got Karlaftis, who at least is like an average guy with a high motor, and you add in, like this is kind of like the basketball team thing that we talk about with wide receivers sometimes. You get it with pass rushers a little bit too. And what I mean by that is just like, you can't have five centers, right? Like you got to have some small guys to move the ball up the court. You got to have your big guys to rebound and play in the post. You got to have your shooters to shoot. You got to have your rebounders to rebound. You could have five LeBrons or whatever, but
Sure. Sure.
there
Sure. Sure.
five LeBrons don't exist.
No.
Like you gotta build the room out with different body types, different skill sets, and I think the defensive line not only do they have some players that they haven't in a while, but like just the variety that they can throw at you from the defensive line is so different from what they've had in the past. You mentioned the three beefy guys in the middle. I would add, I don't know exactly what his status is. Omar Norman Lott, who looked very good last year, as a high draft pick in the middle of the defense last year before he tore up his knee. Um, if you have those four guys in the middle of the defense, Norman Lott with the other three guys we got in the middle, Woods, Jones, and Khyiris Tonga, that's a really solid group. You put Karlaftis on the outside and then R. Mason Thomas on the other side. R. Mason Thomas adding that speed rush element in there, it just changes the dynamic so much of like what the
Yep.
defensive line is capable of.
Yep.
Like even if he's not getting to the quarterback, even if he's just pushing the quarterback out of the pocket, or he's, and vice versa, if Chris Jones is collapsing the pocket and he's kind of forcing the quarterback back into the arc a little bit, and you've got the speed rush coming in, and then you've got Karlaftis, who may not be like your instant win speed pass rusher, but like he's tenacious. He's got a high motor. He's gonna play through the whistle, right? Like he's coming in on the other side. I think that group has a lot of potential. So I'm
What do you
bullish
think
on both
about
these units.
what do you think about the corpse of Emmanuel Agba?
I'm a little bit concerned that the corpus of Emmanuel Ogba was signed and is probably going to make the roster. I guess,
Yeah.
like, and I name dropped him earlier too. I haven't completely given up on FAU. Like obviously that pick was not a good pick. I think we kind of knew at the time, aside from the fact that he's from the area and the draft was in Kansas City and that was cool. And we had the Super Bowl trophy up there and everything like that. Like, I think everybody sort of saw through that charade at the time and thought, yeah, this probably could have been a better pick. But I don't think that the doors completely closed on him being kind of a good player. And he was sort of like not that he's as twitchy as R. Mason Thomas, but it's kind of the same thing, right? Like he was
Mold
sort of
breaker.
this bendier, faster, smaller speed rusher that they brought in, and he just hasn't been healthy. And
Or good.
I think there's a chance that he's a contributor, and I feel great. Like, I don't know. I still feel good about Spags running that side of the ball. I'm confident about both these units. I lean pass rush.
Well, one thing about FAU that is nice is that he's not going to offer any less than what he's offering.
Sure.
Like,
yeah, exactly. Right.
He's one of those players that if he comes in and he flashes or pops a little bit, you're like, oh, yeah, like that's something more than what you've given us in the past. And if he doesn't, it's like, okay, yeah, we know. That's
very easy for him to exceed expectations.
Yes, correct.
Let's do I have two left and I had them in a different order. I'm actually gonna do the less interesting one first. So stick with us for the interesting one at the very end. Let's do free agents, and it's gonna be, we're gonna handicap this with non Kenneth Walker division, since he was obviously the big spend at free agency. You may be surprised when you read these names out how sparse the free agent class was. I was surprised when I wrote it down in preparation for the show. You've got safety Alohi Gilman, defensive tackle Khyiris Tonga, who we've talked about, both of those guys, cornerback Kader Kohu. You've got the running back Amari DiMercado. And then, of course, technically a free agent signing, a reunion with cornerback L'Jarius Sneed. Leaving out Ken Walker and just considering those five guys, who's kind of leading your confidence ratings amongst that group?
I think it's got to be Khyiris Tonga. He came from a good defensive system with good defensive coaches over in New England. He's a big dude. I think all the other guys are either three guys in the secondary, Alohi Gilman, Kader Kohu, and L'Jarius Sneed, who, even if they're good, we're going to see them get burned because it's the NFL and you're a secondary player. And so I just feel like even if those players are fine, I'm going to have reasons to be frustrated with them, and they're going to give up some plays. And Amari DiMercado just frankly isn't going to see the field enough. I feel like Emmett Johnson's looking at your second most snaps as a running back. And so if that's the case, I'm not really confident in the third running back. That doesn't really do anything for me. And So
And he
yeah,
might be the fourth,
and he might be the
Rashard
fourth.
Smith.
Absolutely
Who
right. It
knows?
doesn't at that point. It doesn't really matter if you're not one or two. Eh.
Right.
But yeah, I think Khyiris Tonga looks like he can hold his own and looks like he's not going to be the run defense in general. Looks like it's going to be better. Hopefully, it is better. So yeah, give me Khyiris Tonga there.
I'll take Alohi Gilman. But I think all these guys are, except for maybe DeMarcado, are sort of worth discussing.
Sure.
Alohi Gilman, sixth best coverage grade from PFF amongst safeties since 2023. So, he was fourth in pass breakups last year. Last year he was 24th in PFF grade among 98 qualified safeties. So,
It's pretty good.
this is a guy who's graded well. The athleticism doesn't leap off of the page, but he's solid and the floor there is really high. I don't know if the ceiling is sky high, but the floor there is really high. I think, Khyiris Tonga, high floor, high ceiling potentially for both of those. I mean, he's a defensive tackle, so maybe I guess like if you're
Right.
if you're capping ceiling in terms of like what is a defensive tackle going to do for you, that's not
It's not
a
Chris Jones.
it's
Yeah.
not a Chris Jones type.
Yeah.
Kader Kohou, if he's healthy, he's put some interesting tape together. And Sneed, I mean, the same thing. Like I'm just so curious to see, he's kind of in one of those interesting spots where like he's a veteran, so you don't need to play him in the preseason, and he's played for this team a lot before. So like they're not gonna put him on tape and throw him out there for a bunch of snaps in any of these
Right.
preseason games. He's gonna show up in week one, and he might not play a single snap in week one. He might play 80% of snaps. I just don't think
Yes.
we know.
I,
And
if this question was who are you most intrigued by instead of
yes.
confident in,
Yeah.
I
Oh
would have
yeah.
said L'Jarius Sneed.
Oh
I
yeah.
think he's really interesting.
Yeah.
I just
He
don't
is.
know. You
Yeah.
know, it's
Yeah.
a
I mean,
mystery.
like they're saying all the right things, right? And it could all be smoke.
Yeah,
It could all
he
be
looked pretty bad in
bluster.
Tennessee.
He did. He looked terrible in Tennessee, but everybody looked terrible in Tennessee.
Yeah,
And
it's true.
like this is one of those, New England Patriots, Bill Belichick dynasty moves that like it would be very Chiefs if it wouldn't be very Chiefs because most of the time we bring these players back and they're not any good.
Correct.
Juju's been pretty
Yeah,
good in the reunion
yeah.
tour.
Did you see
You know,
Kareem Hunt is trying out for the Lions?
I did. Yeah, they're just trying to replace their entire running back room. You know, once you get past the elite guy at the top of the
Uh,
depth chart, you're like, we just need the worst running backs in the NFL. I don't
yeah,
want to dump on Kareem because he honestly he exceeded expectations and
he did.
he gave us two pretty good seasons
He did.
for what he was doing before he came
Oh,
to
it was a
Kansas
great
City.
reunion. I think it was very successful. I mean, given who he was and given the cheapness of it, and
Yeah.
it worked out well. I think.
But anyway, I can't wait to see what we get from L'Jarius Sneed in week one because we're just not going to know.
Right.
The Chiefs
Mhm.
know,
Yeah, the Broncos
but
won't know.
they're not saying. It's just going to be really interesting to see
He's
what
going to lock down
happens in
Jalen
week one.
Waddle the whole game.
Oh,
He's just
man,
going
that
to
would be
shadow him,
so
and
so
they're
sick.
not
He's
going to be
gonna
able to
like
throw to him.
push him over at the line of scrimmage like he used to do with Tyreek.
Tyreek.
He's
Yeah.
just gonna like punch him into the ground at the line of scrimmage. Boy, that would be fun. All right, let's do this one. This one is that actually ended up being more interesting than I thought it was going to be, but I really
Yeah.
like this one.
Yeah.
Let's just talk about the rookies. Which rookie tops your confidence
Ugh.
meter? We've got cornerback Mansour Delane. We've got defensive tackle Peter Woods. We've got edge rusher R. Mason Thomas. You've got defensive back Jaden Kennedy. You've got running back Emmett Johnson, and you've got, of course, wide receiver Cyrus Allen.
So let's do both. Let's do confidence and let's do intrigue because they
Okay.
are
Yeah.
they are
Yeah,
just
yeah.
different vibes,
Sure. Yeah, that's
you
fair.
I think the default answer, you have to be the most confident in the guy that was picked sixth overall.
Yeah.
You just
Yeah.
he's the most pro ready, he's the most polished of all these players. There's a reason he went that
The
high in the
injury
draft.
seems to be behind him.
The injuries behind him, yes. So I think Mansour Delane looks like the type of guy that we're gonna look back on, I hope, and be like, hell yeah, they got it. Like they nailed the pick. He's a shutdown corner that we can either flip in 4 years like the Chiefs always do, or maybe they'll finally extend a DB. But I think without really much debate, Mansour Delane's got to be the one you're most confident in, right?
Yeah.
Before we go to intrigue.
From
So
I agree with that.
so now it becomes a lot more fun when you talk about intrigue.
Yeah.
They all are intriguing. They really are.
They are. They are.
I don't know a ton about Jaden Kennedy. I don't really know if he's the type of guy that I'm really thinking about a ton right now. We'll see. Maybe all it takes is for one cool pick six or something, and I'm like, hell yeah, that's my guy. But Delane is extremely intriguing as a cornerback prospect and as a potential really big difference maker right away on the defense. Peter Woods, I mean, Chris Jones' help on the inside of the defensive line is huge, and he's a guy that had top whatever they were scouting him, top 10, top 5 potential in the draft before, going into last year. He has a very high ceiling. I don't know if he'll get there, but he's really fun. R. Mason Thomas, you already talked a lot about. Great bend, great, interesting, different profile for a Chiefs pass rusher,
It's the
and
closing speed.
the closing
Fun to
speed. And the
watch.
Chiefs just need juice on the pass rush. They just haven't had
Desperately.
juice really in a
Literally,
while.
the only juice they've had on pass rush like the last 3 years is Chris Jones, who's getting like triple
Right.
teamed on
I
every
mean,
rep.
edge pass rush that's been good. You probably have to go back to like Tom Bahali and that
Justin Houston.
Justin Houston,
Yeah.
that group of guys that I mean, ever since then they just really haven't brought a lot
The
from the
one that
edge.
sticks out to me is the first game Justin Houston came back. It was the wild, crazy Monday night game in Denver that we
Yeah,
won on the Doinker.
yeah,
I think Houston had 3 sacks maybe in that game. He had just
sure,
come off IR.
sure, he
That's like the
dominated.
last time I remember. Like
Uh-huh.
I watched that game and I was like, oh my God, this is what it's like to have like an elite edge rush. And then
Right.
obviously it didn't last because he couldn't stay healthy. But you're
I,
right. I mean, I think that's like the last time, and that's pre-Pat. I mean, that was
yes,
Alex Smith
yes.
was the quarterback.
Correct, correct. And then I think the answer to the question lies in the next two guys, which says something, but I think
Yeah,
that you and I mean, offense is so much more
sure.
intriguing and fun,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
it's just it's a different beast than defense. Defense, you're trying to prevent cool shit from happening. Offense, you're trying to make cool shit happen. So it's like Emmett Johnson and Cyrus Allen both have pop. They both have the potential to be a fun piece on the offense for a while. And that's really intriguing. And, if Emmett Johnson, if obviously I know they've got Ken Walker, but if Emmett Johnson really flashes, like they can have a lot more of like a 1-2 punch, like a thunder and lightning type of thing moving forward.
yeah.
And that's obviously, I think most NFL offenses would look better if they have two effective running backs compared to one. I
Yep.
know that, the old school is just the bell cow and the three down back and that type of stuff. But you look at like as one example, Gibbs and Montgomery in Detroit. And like if the Chiefs could have a little bit of a curveball to throw, a changeup, something other than Ken Walker, would be great. And then Cyrus Allen, aka Stephon Diggs, aka future Hall of Famer. I mean, the the potential for any wide receiver to be good, I'm always going to ride with a upside wide receiver until they prove me wrong. Like, I wanted Sky Moore to work. I wanted everybody that they've gone through over the last couple of years. I still am really hoping for Jalen Royals to turn into an actual football player. But Cyrus Allen's just he's had a different camp. He's had like that hype from him. It's not been it's not been fabricated. You've heard it from offense, from defense, from everybody that's been around him. He's been a good player so far. So Cyrus Allen's my answer, but they're all fun. They're all it's a cool rookie class for sure. They're very intriguing.
Yeah, I mean, I think one way you could look at it is, and Cyrus Allen has the benefit in this scenario of being a fifth round pick, right? Like if Cyrus Allen was a first round pick, like
Yes,
if the question
expectations.
was
Yeah,
if the question was pick one of these guys to be an all pro, like you pick Cyrus Allen because he's a fifth round pick and he's in the worst position group of any of these guys. And so like if Cyrus Allen was an all pro, like the Chiefs are going to win the Super Bowl
oh my
because
God, yeah.
you
If they
know,
got
like
like a
you've got
slot
Stephon Diggs in the
monster,
fifth
like
round, and you
or
also got,
mhm,
Mansour Delane at 6 overall, and you got a,
mhm,
a good interior defensive guy at the end of the first round, and you got a pass rusher with juice in the second round and R. Mason Thomas, and you got another
right.
running back. Like if you could pick one guy to blow up the projection, it would be Cyrus Allen because he's the guy that was picked last out of this group, and he's also in the weakest position group on this list. But
Yes,
like, I think they're all really interesting. It's like, if Mansour Delane ended up being a first team All Pro, you'd be like, yeah, okay. I mean,
sure.
he was the sixth overall pick. He's
Uh-huh.
playing a position that young guys can have a ton of success right away
We've
playing
seen that a
corner.
lot, right?
We've seen it a
Recently.
lot.
Mhm.
so that wouldn't necessarily be a huge surprise. Obviously, it would be better than what you would expect from a rookie at any
Right.
position. But
Right.
like, man, if Cyrus Allen hits and Cyrus Allen like hits big and hits right away, like, think about, and obviously they're different types of players, but like go back to
Yes, please.
2015, 2016. I guess it would have been 2015, Tyreek's rookie year.
16,
Tyreek.
16 was his rookie year, and then he played
Oh, that's
17
right.
the
That's
full
right.
year, and
With
then
Alex Smith. That's right.
yeah, yeah,
I was thinking 2 years before Pat, but that was
right,
essentially 2 years before Pat. 2 years
right,
before Pat became the starter.
right.
Um, Tyreek Hill, also a fifth round pick, and Tyreek Hill obviously for reasons that didn't have anything to do with his ability, but like he came in and almost immediately it was like, oh, wow, this guy is way better than a fifth round pick, and
Mhm.
he's completely changing the dynamic of an offense in a way that you just cannot expect a fifth round rookie wide receiver to do.
No,
And by the end of the year, it's like, this is the best wide receiver on the team. And by the end of his second season, you're like, this is one of the best wide
wide
receivers of all
receivers in
time.
football. Yeah.
Like, yeah, exactly. Like, this is one of the best players in the NFL. Um, that kind of trajectory just, I mean, it just changes so much. I mean, you can even look at players like Stephon Diggs. The guy that, and I obviously don't want to say that Cyrus Allen is Antonio Brown, but like Antonio Brown was a sixth round pick.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Antonio Brown did not test as well as Cyrus Allen.
Sure.
Antonio Brown was
Not a
purely,
physical
he was
specimen.
purely a route running technician.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And almost immediately, Antonio Brown comes in and is like almost immediately extremely good. And by the end of his second year, it's like clearly one of the best players in the NFL.
Yep.
I mean, an 1,100 yard season his second year, and then he gets hurt. His third year, I mean, almost 800 yards in 10 starts, 13 games, and then 1,500 yards, 1,700 yards, 1,800 yards, 1,300 yards, 1,500 yards, 1,300 yards.
Jeez, that's his run.
Dude,
I mean,
he was crazy, but
he
like
was donkey brains, but yeah,
the guy was outrageous. And I mean, and the reception totals each of those years, 110, 129, 136, 106, 101, 104. I mean, the guy had six straight 100 catch seasons. I mean, like, again, I'm not saying that Cyrus Allen is Antonio Brown, but if you pull one of these levers, you pull the Cyrus Allen as an all-pro lever, and maybe he is Antonio Brown, and then the team's demonstrably, like, not only is winning the Super Bowl this year, they're probably going to win like 3 or 4 Super Bowls in a row.